This weekend, I experienced something that I had never seen in professional sports, ever, in my whole life of watching professional sports. On the ice, they were playing really rough, and one of the opposing team hit one of our team really hard from behind. It was a dirty hit. The kid went unconscious. Immediately, the trainer yells at the other trainer, and the emergency techs start making their way out onto the ice. As soon as that happens, they start doing chest compressions, CPR on this kid. There were audible gasps. There were some people crying. Other fans were yelling at the opposing team. Just to see the different ways people experience this traumatic event. That event had triggered my mind to bring up all these other series of traumatic events. But the reality is the majority of people have no idea what's happening in their brain and body. Welcome to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. I'm your host, Sergeant Q. With me, as always, Doc Jess.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Now, Jess, this is something I see is very prevalent in society today. Because of social media, because we have more exposure to people, we're witnessing a lot more traumatic events.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people think that in order to start having post-traumatic stress symptoms, that they have to have experienced that trauma themselves. But the truth is, just witnessing that trauma will bring up thoughts, feelings, and emotions from past experiences that you've had, which will then become signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And no one has talked about how do we deal with this. And that's what I'd love to discuss today.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because it not only is, right, like we're exposed to more traumatic things from just the world we live in right now, but it's also really important to understand that trauma isn't one of these modern descriptions where you can make up your own description or your own definition of it. It's not your truth of trauma. Like, trauma actually has a definition that we need to honor, not downgrading a hardship that you had in your life. It's just we have to be able to distinguish the difference between something hard and actual trauma. And as you bring up a good point, that if not only do you not have to have experienced it yourself, you don't even have to have past trauma that you experienced for witnessing trauma to be trauma. So I'm just gonna read to you from the DSM-5, which is...
So what is the DSM-5 for people who don't know?
It's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for diagnosing mental health disorders.
So it's the book that all the doctors look at when they talk to you and say, do you fit these different categories? And then they can give you a mental health diagnosis.
Yes, and not just doctors. Like, this is my foundation in my profession. As a licensed mental health counselor, I use this to diagnose my clients.
Yes.
And so you have to have definitive definitions and boundaries and structure around certain things, so we're not just diagnosing everybody with bipolar and different things like that. So here it is, straight from the DSM-5. Trauma is defined as exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence in one or more of the following ways. Number one, direct exposure. So this person experienced the traumatic event themselves. Example could be combat exposure, physical or sexual assault, serious accidents, natural disasters, medical trauma involving threat to life. Two, witnessing. The person witnessed in person the event as it occurred to others. Examples, seeing someone seriously injured or killed, witnessing violence or abuse. Three, learned it happened to a close other. The person learned that the traumatic event occurred to a close family member or close friend. In cases of death, the death must have been violent or accidental. Four, repeated or extreme exposure to details of traumatic events, usually work-related. So examples, first responders, combat medics, ER staff, child abuse investigators. This does not include exposure through media, TV, movies, or pictures unless work-related, if that makes sense.
I don't know if that's been updated since the huge injection of social media. Because like the Charlie Kirk assassination affected a lot of
Absolutely. And it affected them, but it's that in itself is not enough to label as trauma. It's a hard situation.
right, but it would, and I could be wrong, but I believe that witnessing that would then touch on other traumatic events that they have experienced,
100%. Yes.
which would then elevate those symptoms.
Yes.
Okay.
So if you lived your whole life without any of those that I just labeled, you have not experienced trauma. If you witnessed Charlie Kirk on screen, that's a really hard situation. Yes. And you're going to have some uncomfortable things you got to work through, potentially. And if you have experienced one of those 4 things that we listed, and you have trauma in your background, and you witness that, it can pull all those old symptoms to the forefront.
Right.
Yes.
Right. This reminds me of a program that I watched where it was this, and this is way back before I really even understood mental health as an issue. This was back 9/11 era. Mm-hmm. And I remember there were all these people that were in New York City during that time. Mm-hmm. And after that whole event happened, there were all these PTSD support groups that popped out trying to help people cope with what just happened in their city. Mm-hmm. And the premise was that they were trying to get these firefighters who were actually there at ground zero to go and go through some of these PTSD trainings or group counselings. Is what they were trying to get them to go and be part of. And their pushback was no, because they went to some of these and they said, this is not for us. Because there were a ton of people that were in those groups who were nowhere near ground zero. They were part of in New York City, but they were miles and miles away. It didn't directly impact them. And so what you saw with these 2 groups that were struggling, and now I understand more. I can understand why the firefighters are like, no, this is not for us. And I agree and disagree. I agree that group may have not been right for them, but a group of just firefighters should have been made available. And this is back when they didn't really fully understand it like we do now. Yeah. And so they were just putting everybody together. But they should have their own space to talk about the things that they experienced there. And these other people who witnessed it, now I understand. I thought, why are they part of this? They were nowhere near this. But I understand now that they're from New York. So they had been in those areas before. They have memories attached to those buildings and those spaces. And they also probably had some past traumatic events that rose up. And this is before I do any of that, but I remember as you were bringing that up, it reminded me of that.
Sure.
That these people, some experienced, some witnessed it, and they were both affected.
Right.
And they both needed help, just in different ways.
And a personal experience that's similar to that would be, right, as a female combat veteran,
right,
there's actually very few documented lionesses or females that actually went on the front lines of the Iraq war. And so I always got looped into these support groups for females for military sexual trauma. And it's not that theirs was lesser traumatic, it's just different. And so because that shared experience wasn't similar of combat versus that kind of trauma, it wasn't as helpful for me. But when I went to the Road Home program at Rush University, they triaged every single person and put them in a cohort of people with very similar shared experiences, so that when you're in this small cohort of 10 people going through 3 weeks of intense outpatient program, you have all very, very similar shared experiences. And that's where I got a ton of growth. And it's not to downplay anybody else's traumas. That's not what this is about. It's just about different experiences need different group settings of shared experiences in order for it to be as impactful as it can be. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's the point that I was getting. I'm glad you share that, because that's the point I was getting to. Is that both of these groups were affected in different ways, and they need a different type of help.
Yes.
And they need their own tribe.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Right, so let's talk about what happens in the brain. All right, Jess. So what's physically happening in the brain when you witness something like that and it's recalling those memories?
Well, and you're a lot better at articulating this, but right, your hippocampus, which stores all your memories,
Yes.
right, and your prefrontal cortex, emotional regulation, and your amygdala, fight, flight, or freeze, right?
Those are the 3 parts of the brain. Yep.
Yeah. So they're working together. You have to,
Actually, they're not.
right,
They're
right,
actually
right.
fighting for dominance.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That more so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So they're not working together, but through the fighting for dominance triggers different things to happen.
Absolutely. That's
Misfiring.
yes.
Yes.
So one is trying to preserve life and the other one's trying to stay rational, is what's happening. And here you brought up a good point. You said the hippocampus, which stores all of our thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Mhm.
And that's our prefrontal cortex. That's where our prefrontal cortex goes to recall information to make good decisions on from past learned experiences. Here's the difference. When it's a traumatic event, it's not stored in the hippocampus. Do you know where it's actually stored? It's stored in the amygdala.
Yes.
We talked about this like a year ago. They just came out with this study on fish brains. It's a whole episode that you guys can find. We did a whole episode on this. But what they're showing is that traumatic memories are not stored in the hippocampus. That's why traditional therapies it takes a really long time to have people work through those, because you have to get them into that traumatic state to pull that out. That's why things like CBD and psilocybin are really good at helping people process through those amygdala emotions, because they're locked in the amygdala. So think about it like this. So this is how your brain operates. Your hippocampus runs your memories run at a very low speed, very low pixelation. That's why it's hard to recall things sometimes. It's not very vivid because it runs at like 720. So if you're going to look at a video at like 480 or 720, it's a very low quality. You can see what's going on, but it's not very detailed. It's not very rich. The audio is kind of off.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 420 or 480 or 720. That's how your hippocampus runs in memory. Now, your amygdala runs HD, like 1080p or 4K. Super high resolution, super high bandwidth for your brain to operate. It can't operate like that all the time and burn itself out. But it stores those memories differently. The reason why traditional talk therapy is really hard for trauma is because you're trying to recall memories in 720 that were saved in 4K. Right. And so it doesn't work really well. You have to get back to that 4K processing power to be able to process through that emotion.
That's a really great metaphor. Way to look at it.
It is. Yeah,
and that's why so many trauma memories are suppressed.
That's right. Because you physically can't recall them until you get into that heightened state.
Yep.
And so that is something that I know doctors, I tried a bunch of different therapies. And so what they would try to do is get me to work out and kick in that fight or flight mode, or retell the story a bunch of times to get those thoughts, feelings, and emotions to kickstart that 4K processing so I could work through it.
At the hockey game, you went up to it.
100%.
That's why all those flashbacks come like they're actually happening. That's why when a firework goes off, it doesn't matter how many times I repeat in my head, I'm in America, nobody's trying to kill me. I'm in America, there's nobody trying to kill me. It's so hard for me to get out of that tunnel vision that I'm in danger, duck and cover.
It's because your body's physically reacting, because there's a chemical reaction that happens in your body. The automatic thought is that you're in danger. Mm-hmm. So then you feel fear, and that feeling is a chemical reaction.
Yeah.
It's nothing you can think through. It's a chemical reaction that's happening in your body. And then that gets categorized into the emotion with your amygdala, in not your hippocampus, but into your amygdala memories. And now that's the emotion. And now we have the ACC where you have to rationally now try to slow that down, like pull the brakes on that. And it can be very difficult. It takes a lot of training to be able to do that.
Yeah, training and consistency in that training. Yeah. I can't tell you how many clients come to me and say, oh, I just want this to be fixed. I want this. And okay, you're not using any of the tools that I've given you on a consistent daily basis. But you want things to change. You can't. It doesn't work. I'm so sorry. I wish it did. Yeah. I wish I had a magic pill. I'm so sorry I don't.
Yeah, it takes that discipline of doing. I get the same thing, and a lot of guys at church do this to me, where they'll come up to me, And if you're watching this and you're one of these guys, I'm talking about you. You come up to me and you tell me, hey, my life is a wreck. I'm struggling with this in my mental health. And I say, great, man. Have you been reading your Bible every day? No, I haven't. I said, what's your daily routine? Well, I haven't really established one. Well, where are you serving in the community or in the church? Well, I just don't have time for that. It's like, okay, look, man, I can't help you go to step 2 if you can't even get step 1.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have these daily disciplines of building good mental health chemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, which then help you overcome when you feel triggered. Because you built all these positive dopamine receptors in your brain, you feel more hopeful. That's why you're going to feel less depressed. But every time you come to me, it's because you're super depressed, but you're not doing the things you need to do to build up that muscle in your brain to overcome depression. There's nothing I can do to help you. So you're absolutely right, Jess. We can teach you, we can give you the information and give you the tools like we do every week. But you're the one who has to use them to build resilience. We can't do it for you. We've done the hard work. We know. It's not like we're teaching you to do something that we've never done. We've done it, and we still do it. At that hockey game, I had to do it. I had to put all of those things in place to bring myself out of that subconscious routine. And how I did it is I've built myself other subroutines that I go through to be able to overcome it. So I've already built out scripting. So when something like that happens, I just run the script. It's the same thing in football. Yeah. They don't go out there and just figure it out. No, they have plays that they've practiced.
Yeah.
So then when something happens, they say, hey, the defense is showing this. I'm going to call an audible, which means the quarterback says, I know what the play is, but I'm going to run something different because I see something different on the field. And he doesn't have to tell the guys what to do. He just gives them one phrase and everybody knows what to do because they practice. You can do the same thing with your brain. When we're in combat, we don't just go out there and wing it. No, you have practiced. When we took out Osama bin Laden, they didn't just say like, oh, hey, let's go hit his house. They were hitting his house for months. They had built up a mock version of where they knew he lived, where he slept, what he did. And they practiced it time and time again. And when one of the choppers went down, they had to call an audible. Okay, we didn't land in the courtyard. We got to breach the wall. So then they had to breach the wall, lose the element of surprise, but they had practiced for that. Yeah. And so they were able to be successful. When they just took out the leader of Venezuela, same thing. They didn't just pick a Saturday to go down and do that. They had practiced. Yeah. Everybody knew what to do.
Yeah. Well, and as Christians, and a majority of our audience is Christians, right? We're taught this is it's not when like spiritual warfares are always going on, but when you hit the trenches in your own life, that's not the time to prepare.
No,
that's the time to react. And before that is the time for you to prepare. So then it's just, okay, I know what to do.
That's right. I'm just going to this routine.
Yeah. And it's just, it's hard to have the discipline to prepare during non-critical times. Sure.
And it feels less important.
Yeah. And life is hard. Suck it up. Just do it. Discipline is literally a choice.
It's not the hard work.
It's not
suck it up on your mental health. It's suck it up and do the work that it takes
for your mental health.
That's what suck it up.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's suck it up and get up when that alarm goes off.
That's right.
To do your 30-minute morning routine.
That's right.
It's already our human nature, right? Subconsciously, passively, to avoid pain and discomfort at all costs. So that's your first step, is just saying, hey, I recognize that it's my human nature to avoid pain and discomfort at all costs. Okay, that makes me human. Now that I've come to terms with that, what do I do about it? Do hard things. My body doesn't want to do this right now. I'm going to do it anyways.
The cold plunge is like that.
Yeah.
You know how many people have gotten to do the cold plunge? It's so funny.
It's literally, you know how hard it is just to talk people into getting up the first time their alarm goes off?
Yeah, I know.
It's almost impossible.
You know, I didn't think it would be easier for me. It's not. It's still hard every time. I had to get up at 4:15 this morning to come along to the airport. I was like, just call an Uber. Nope. I'm not the guy that puts my mom in an Uber. I'm the guy who drives her to the airport. That's who I am. That's who I want to be. And scripture talks about this. Paul talks about this. He says, I do the things that I don't want to do, and I don't do the things that I want to do. He's talking about this right here, doing the hard things, being disciplined. And I love it because he's in prison and he's singing and he's worshiping and he's praising the Lord. And he talks about, I've had a lot of great things and I've been happy and content. And when I'm abased and have nothing and I'm in the inner cells of prison,
Of literal prison.
I still have that joy of the Lord and he's still praising and worshiping. So if you guys don't know, you think like, okay, he's in prison. You're thinking like modern day prison now, where him and his buddy are in their own cell and on these different tiers. That's not how it worked. Number one, there's no electricity. So there's like torches and it's super dark. And so there were
no bathrooms.
Well, yes, there was. There were tiers. There were tiers.
Oh yeah, the floor.
The floor.
Yes.
Yes. So there were tiers. And so the lesser criminals were put on the top tier and then lower, lower, lower. And then the bottom is where the drain was.
Uh-huh.
So when Paul talks about he was in the inner cell, he was at the very bottom where all of the feces and muck and mire would go down to go into the drain. That's where they kept Paul. So he wasn't just in prison, like he was in the worst place in prison and he's still praising and worshiping God. And that's what sometimes it feels like that in our own life, where we're in that muck and that mire, in that horrible place. And we have to remind ourselves and we have to find that joy. So here's what I did. Number one, I had to run that subroutine. And what do? What's my fallback? Prayer. So I looked at what can I do? I can't do anything to help this kid, even though I want to. There's no, I wouldn't, even if I could get over the glass onto the ice, there's nothing I could do to help that kid that wasn't already happening. They already had people way more professionally trained to handle that situation. All I could do is pray. And so that's what Aaliyah and I did. We stood there and we rose our hands and we prayed during that time. And that helped me center myself, remind myself that I'm safe, that the only one who can actually help this kid is God. Kid needed full recovery. He's doing fine. But that was the experience. That's what happened. So for me, my default is to prayer. But if I hadn't practiced that wouldn't be my default. When I had that home invasion robbery happen, I didn't even think about what I needed to do to defend myself. I just reacted because I had trained in that scenario thousands of times in the Marine Corps on how to clear a room, how to clear my weapon, clear a room, and be able to engage targets and survive. I didn't have to think about what to do. I didn't have to load my magazines, be like, hold on, let me load my magazines, let me put one in the chamber, let me put it in holes. I didn't have to do any of that because I had trained and I had prepared myself. And so when the time arose for me to actually have to use this training, it was automatic. And that's where people are making a mistake, is they're not preparing for these things before they happen. They're not building the discipline, building the dopamine, building the serotonin and oxytocin to be able to navigate through these things.
Right. I think about when medical emergencies happen when I'm around, and there's medical professionals, nurses, even doctors that might be around, and I'm the one who goes in and starts acting because even though it was 20 years ago, I practiced and responded to emergencies hundreds of times when my prefrontal cortex was still developing in my early 20s when I was deployed and going through my medic training and all that. So it's like a foundational piece of who I am that I just go into mode of knowing what to do for most medical emergencies that afterwards I have to figure out what to do to help myself.
Yes.
Like
in
the aftermath of it. But if you think about like, okay, well, my counselor, this person told me to do some mindfulness and you try it for 3 times in a week and well, it didn't really help me. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the discipline of doing it over and over and over and over hundreds of times.
It becomes that neural network. It becomes that rut.
Yes.
And here's the way I like to look at it. When you look at a dry riverbed, like in the desert, in the Arizona desert, there's dry riverbeds. There's no water in that at all. But when the rains come, where do they go? They go into those deep channels that are already formed and the river flows. They call it muscle memory, but it's not really muscle memory. It's just these very, very robust neural pathways that have been created in your brain that don't always have to operate. But the minute that stimuli comes in, it flows right through there because it's already been trained what to do. That's why I could go a couple weeks, probably even a couple months without doing my morning routine.
Yeah.
And I could be just fine because I've spent decades building those. Now, I wouldn't want to stay in that place because I would start to lose some of that,
Sure.
but I could afford to do that.
Yeah.
Where other people are just starting out, you can't afford to skip a day.
Yeah.
You can't afford to skip a day. You just can't.
Yeah.
You've got to build that neural network in place. So what's one thing, I have one tip that I want to give them. So in the aftermath, afterwards, I talked about my feelings. Yes. And it is incredibly helpful. We talked about this a few episodes ago. When you are able to talk about your feelings and name them, like I felt uncomfortable, I felt fear, I felt uneasy, I felt helpless. When you name that, it reduces post-traumatic symptoms by 50%. 50%. That's the reduction of it. 50%. So just vocalizing it. So with my daughter on the drive home, we talked about that. We talked about that experience. And here's what happened. She said this, and I had to reconcile it, is that she asked me like, hey, well, what's going to happen? I said, I don't know. He died out there, and they brought him back. When I said that he died, I knew it in my brain, but I had verbalized it.
And became reality.
And I got choked up. When I was sitting in those stands with her, I got choked up for a second. And she's like, why did that happen? I go, that was the emotion, the emotion from my subconscious reaching my conscious mind.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's why I had that hiccup in my voice, is because that was the release of that emotion. That's actually really good. Number one, it helped me recognize I need to process through this.
Yeah.
That's why we're having this conversation now in the car.
Yeah.
And number two, it lets everybody else know.
Yeah.
Right? That, hey, it's okay. This is an emotional time.
Yeah.
And so that expression of emotion, a lot of people want to suppress it. But really, it's a warning sign that we've got to talk about this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did. We talked about it. Here's something sad. Holly and I talked about this last week. So if you guys remember last week, and if not, go back. There's a study I found that showed that 79% of married couples that were surveyed, 79% of them were very uncomfortable talking about mental health to their spouse. 79%. But that was still the highest demographic of people that they felt comfortable talking to about mental health.
Yeah.
So that means 2 out of 10 people feel very uncomfortable talking to their spouse. There should be their closest confidant.
Yeah.
21. So 2 out of 10 people. And that was the most reliable person that they felt safe with.
Yeah.
So how sad is that? Sometimes I forget that because I work in a space and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
I talk to all my friends about it. So if you're one of my friends, you don't have a choice but to talk about mental health, because that's every conversation I'm driving it to. But I live in that bubble. And it was a big reminder to me that, man, there are other people, I'm so blessed that I've created this bubble around me where we can talk about these things. With my spouse, with you, with our friends, that other people need to create that safety bubble as well, where they can talk about these things.
Right. And not to idolize mental health, but to build resilience.
That's right.
That's what it does. Right. Not to sit and like make mental health the center of your attention all the time, every time you come around, but normalizing it. So it is a safe place to talk about it. Right.
Normalizing it. That's the thing. Not idolizing it, but normalizing the conversation.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Right. And just to piggyback on pretty much what you did, my number one tool for myself in these situations, and that I try to teach my clients, is my RAIN acronym. And that's pretty much what you did, but it's a little more structured for me.
So go ahead and give them the RAIN.
Yeah, right. It's an acronym because we're military. RAIN, RAIN. Let the rain wash over you, kind of like the desert. R is recognize and say out loud what you're feeling.
Yes.
A, allow yourself to feel it. And I say specifically set a timer for 1 to 2 minutes and just let your body process through that feeling, right? Because like you said, we want to submerge it, and it doesn't help anything.
No, it makes it worse.
Yeah. And it turns us into monsters eventually. So you just want to allow yourself. So if that's extreme sadness, you're just going to let yourself cry. If it's anger, you're going to scream in a pillow. Whatever it is, you're going to allow your body to release and feel that emotion that you just recognized and said out loud. Recognize, allow. Okay. Then when you hear audibly that timer go off, the switch happens. You're training your body and your brain. You're training your brain to switch. Now it's time to go into I, which is investigation. I'm going to investigate. There's different ways to investigate. This is where people get hung up. Investigate the truths around you. So if you're really triggered, this is when we do grounding.
Yes.
Stuff, see what's around us. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 things I can see. 4 things I can touch. 3 things I can hear. 2 things I can smell. 1 thing I can taste. That grounds you, and you're investigating in the reality and truth around you. You can investigate through God's word. What is God's word promising me in this situation? What is the reality of this situation? The truths of the reality, right? Investigating. And then lastly, N is nurture and not take personal. So you're going to nurture yourself, whether that is when you got home and you process through this with Aaliyah in the car. You're going to nurture yourself with, for ladies, sometimes they like a hot bubble bath. You're probably not the bubble bath kind of guy.
Yes, I am.
No. Nurture. There's different ways to nurture. You can nurture just by saying, hey, you know what? You did a really good job processing through that. But also the second part is not take personal, is not taking it personal that you just had that reaction. Let it go. Don't beat yourself up. Just nurture yourself and not take personal that you just let that just cycled through your reality.
You know what's funny? When you bring that up, Aaliyah and I did that automatically because she's been going through this stuff since she's 9 years old, right? Mm-hmm. Have been learning this stuff and teaching it to her. And so she's 27 now, but she's learned all of this stuff. And so it's so funny because that nurture piece, we went through all of those when we were sitting there. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go see if I can help. So I went to go talk to the team manager, say, hey, I'm a mental health professional. I'd love to be able to, if you guys need help, this is who I am. This is how I can offer assistance. So I went to go do that. And then I came back and I was like, let me stop and grab some sour candies for Aaliyah and some M&Ms for me. Nurture. And I get back to my seat and guess what Aaliyah has?
Sour candies and M&Ms. Yeah. Nice. That's adorable. Now, I'm for people that have like food addictions, don't let nurturing be that. But if it's a rare thing for you and it works, go ahead.
No, but it was just funny, right? But that's not an issue that we're dealing with. But you're right. You don't want that to become a crutch. But it was just a really because that chocolate, it does stimulate dopamine, and the fact that I bought that same thing that she bought for me, it was oxytocin, which is a bonding chemical, right? And so we both thought the same thing for each other to buy these things.
Well, and everybody nurtures in different ways themselves. Like it was probably nurturing for you actually to go and offer help because that's been a part of your healing through service, right? And so that was a portion, I would say, of nurturing too.
And for me, it was like, okay, this is a new experience. How do I make it positive?
Yeah.
I can go offer assistance.
That's really cool. Cool story. Way to turn that hardship into growth and teaching.
That's right. Well, we have a bunch of new stuff coming for you guys this year. Jessica and I were just talking about it. She has a really great marriage seminar that's coming up next month. Sign up for that. If you're local, you're going to want to get into that. I'm going to be there. My wife and I are going to go through it. It's going to be an amazing time to invest in your marriage. I also have a full course that's coming out later next month that you guys can sign up and go through. It's all online. You can do just 15 minutes a day. It's not like 3 hours. It's just 15 minutes. Get in the habit of investing in your mental health, just 15 minutes a day. And I also do a free group that you guys can join for Evolve, where every Thursday at 6 o'clock, I teach for 20 minutes on a different mental health component. I give you some tools and tips. If you have questions, you can ask them right there. It's a great way to be able to engage with us is joining this free group with, other people and learning how to build resilience together.
Well, and what a great way to put an idea to action is to start one of your routines being the 15 minutes a day program that Sergeant Q is putting out.
And the other thing is that we teach this to other people and other people start building things. Billy, Jessica's husband, Billy, who you guys remember was here with me during the holidays, he has a Kingdom Grit that his small group that he's doing right now, where he's discipling men of his church. Like, this is what it's about. It's about taking what you learn and then how can I now help other people? And that's what he's doing right now. He built this whole thing. He spent a year building this whole curriculum. I watched.
Do you know what started it? The 45-day challenge is your morning routine.
That's right. That's right. It did. That morning routine set him on fire. Yeah, it helped me. It helped you. I remember when we first talked about it. Mm-hmm. You did it, and then he did it. It was a fun episode. We won't get into it here, but it was a fun episode that we did. It really did help. Yeah, it really, really did. And so there's a lot of opportunities for you guys to connect with us, get plugged in, get support, and then become support yourself.
And you guys remember, it helps us out. If you're enjoying our content or getting anything out of it, please like and subscribe to whatever platform you're watching this on or listening to this on. It could really help us out.
So we're going to be bringing on guests that can add value to your mental health journey, because we want to do 3 things here at the Mental Health Janitors. We want to educate, empower, and encourage you on your mental health journey. I'm Sergeant Q.
I'm Doc Jess.
And we're out.